Hello, Stoughton. Welcome to the Stoughton Godfather Show. I'm your host, Peter Matresco, and the distinguished gentleman to my right here is Selectman Joe Mokrisky. And we got a lot of little topics to talk about, what's going on in Stoughton. And I want to start off with Lipsky's Field, but I keep calling it Lipsky's Farm because I go way back as a kid with that farm. And on Facebook, there was a lot of questions added to the town manager's page when he put it out there that Lipsky's Field was going to be, I think it's 200 units for elderly, and it's going to be done by, well, I'll get to that in a minute. But anyway, so a lot of people have responded to it, and Ed DeFelice was right when he said, Ed DeFelice, it is absolutely right. We have been suggesting that land for senior housing over the years. Okay, this young woman by the name of Heather, on Facebook, she asked, Lipsky's farmland has been cleaned up. No, she asked a question that it was polluted. And my answer to her was Lipsky's farmland had been cleaned up of the pollution by Brookfield Engineering Corporation at the cost of millions, which it really did. And another woman, Stephanie Sweetman, basically saying another natural habitat is going to be gone, but it won't be because most of the land is wetland and you cannot build on it, so its natural habitat, the biggest part of the property, is going to remain. So I put together a little history of the Lipsky farm. At one time, it was a working dairy farm. The whole 25-acre plus was all grass for the cows and for hay. Mr. Lipsky would dredge the so-called brook, which was really a storm drain for Canton Street. By keeping the drainage ditch open and below the natural grade of the ground around it, it lowered the water table so it was not flooded. He had built a bridge made to cross the ditch for the cows and for the farm equipment. It was a beautiful piece of property. He auctioned off all the cows in 1942 and just raised beef cattle. When he passed, he gave the land to the house in the house and barn to the Hebrew Senior Life. At the time, it could have been another entity. In the 80s, the farmer who rented the land was planting corn on the wettest part of the property. Even up to 2005, the land had a big greenhouse near Simpson Street and Canton Street. In a short time, the land had been neglected. The land turned into a quagmire. When they build a senior housing, I hope the Conservation Board will let them reclaim the rest of the property and bring it back to where it was years ago, so they can have walking trails and benches to sit on. If this is done, I am 100% on board. It will be one of Stoughton's most beautiful senior housing, maybe even one of the most beautiful senior housing projects around. And if you got anything to say on that, Joe, chime right in.
No, thanks, Peter. Thanks for inviting me. But yeah, this has been a great thing. Select Board Member Steve Cavey has been on this, and he's been consistent in his message that that we do need new senior housing. And what's nice about this is Stoughton residents will get a preference. And that's long overdue because, as you're well aware, the veterans housing we had down on Memorial Drive off of Drake Ave, as well as Drake Ave, for returning vets, now has gone into just the housing stock. So being a Stoughton resident doesn't give us any preference at all. And that was mainly for returning vets, in World War II and Vietnam. So that's changed now. So that's just housing stock, and people from out of town can get into it as fast as somebody from Stoughton. So having something like this in that organization, making the commitment they did to have it be Stoughton priority is a great thing. So it's my hat's off to Select Board Member Cavey for staying on top of it and working with everyone to bring it to the forefront.
All right, that was going to be another question down the line, but that's okay, you answered. But I'll add to what you just said is most of these senior projects have state or federal monies involved, and that's why you can't have Stoughton residents having first preference. This is private money, no state and no federal, so that can be Stoughton residents first. And then when the Stoughton residents have been satisfied, then they open it up for anybody to apply up from out of town. That's how I.
Hey, I'll be moving in there by then.
And the other good thing, I'm assuming they're going to pay taxes.
Yeah, well, they are in some ways a nonprofit, so who knows what,
Oh,
but
okay.
I don't know enough about it to make a comment.
All right. And the other thing, okay, what's your take on the civil service employees doing away with civil service? Are the town employees on board with that?
Yeah, well, it doesn't affect the town employees as much as it does people that are coming on board. Civil service, if you remember as well, that was another initiative to get people coming back from World War II and Vietnam, Afghanistan, Iraq, to give them veteran status and to put them to work. So it allowed a system where they would hold a test, they would vet people, and then they would give you a list for the town based on how many applicants had listed Stoughton as a community. Well, that's just not working well. That you get a list, and by the time you get the list, the people have already looked for other jobs. It just isn't working well. We did this in the late 2000s as well, where we got the DPW out of the civil service system as well, and it allowed them to just hire people that were right for the job, not somebody that was on a list and they didn't want the job. And that's how you get people when they take a job and they think they're protected and they can't do anything.
Yeah.
It's not like the private sector where you go in and you get a job based on your merits. People that get into those jobs through civil service, and because of the protections that were there, is they really couldn't be held accountable to any standards. And you had to really go through a ton of things to release somebody, and it cost the taxpayers money. You're getting involved with lawyers and everything else. When most of the world now is progressive discipline, and you give everybody an opportunity to do the job, and if they mess up over and over and over, why hold a job open for somebody that doesn't care about it?
Yeah.
So it allows the people of Stoughton to get the best quality candidates, and we can choose them, vet them, do background checks, and see what their work history. So, and again, bring the best employees into the town of Stoughton.
Yeah, that's right. Rather than you have to, the way it is with the civil service, you have to hire the person that's next on the list, even
Right.
though he's probably not a good candidate. But so
Right.
that's one bad feature.
Right.
First time I heard about civil service, nothing to do with me, but we were installing sewers in North Andover, and we booked a water service. So the water department came out to put it back together, and first guy to show up,
Yeah.
he was complaining because he was a foreman. Now the town decided to go into civil service, so they had to take the test. He failed the test, but book-wise, he probably didn't have it. But knowledge-wise, what had to be done through that whole system for water, he knew the ins and outs.
Mm-hmm.
So now he gets demoted to a laborer, and they hire this young guy as the foreman, and he had no inclination how to do anything to even fix the broken service. You know what I mean? So I could see him. He was, he's an unhappy camper.
Yeah.
So that kind of right there, I got kind of sour on it. But I'm glad everybody's on board, and yeah, it'll be better for the town.
Yeah, sure will.
All right, and civil service. Oh, I'm going to save this one for a little later. It's going to take a lot of time.
Uh-oh.
Now, new schools. Now, can we afford to do this? We have an override right now we're paying off for the high school, and an override for the fire station. And now we're talking about a new school, and down the line, we need a police station. We needed one for years, and for some reason why we keep shoving it off to the side. Now the school department, the officers, they want to move from Jones School back to the West School, which is, I don't understand why they can't stay at the Jones School rather than they spent a few $1 million to bring it up to where they wanted it, and now we're going to end up doing the same thing at the West School, which doesn't make much sense to me. I mean, there's a lot of money there. And And the Freeman Street Fire Station, they want to spend money renovating it for emergency headquarters. Something happens, all the town officials congregate there. And yeah, so how much can a town like us afford? I mean, we're a middle to low middle class, but we have some well-to-do people, but I don't think there's enough of them to ease the burden off the average person.
Peter, it's a very, very simple question. Number one, to take it right off the list, Freeman Street has already been funded. All right, so that is going to happen. It's already been funded. It's been voted as a part of the override. To do that as well. When it was the fire station override, there's money that was put in to do that as well. So that's already funded through the override. Can we afford it? It's up to the residents whether we can afford it. The budget process can't afford it. So like you said, it's going to take an override. So it's going to be up to the residents based on the cost that comes forward from the school department on a new South School. We do need some renovation to the police department, you're right. And I was the one with my colleagues that started the process to abolish the Public Safety Building Committee a few years back and focus on our immediate need was a fire station. As you know, we've been talking about it almost 30 years.
Yeah, right.
And within a year, because we did it the right way and we utilized our paid staff, to come up with the plan and to get the funding mechanism, we took in a year what couldn't be done with almost 3 years anyway of talking about this building committee. And at a cost of almost $400,000 that all they had to show for it was a set of plans for land that we didn't have. So, I think we did the right move by stepping in, changing that process so that the residents could save money, which we will end up doing is saving money. And on the police department, I've remain steadfast that we don't need a new building. We need an addition to the building.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. We own the parking lot right next door. That's land we own. It's not big enough for a fire station, right? But it's big enough to almost double the size of the police department to modernize and during that construction, add money in to repair the things that are needed in the building as it stands now. But again, that's the residents will have that final say, because again, it's going to be an override. Because we just can't afford all these things out of the budget.
Exactly. Well, the days of taking it out of the budget, that was under, what's his name, Superintendent Gibbons.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that get built into budgets, without a doubt.
But that was
And
a long time ago.
yeah,
But
exactly. But the budget, the school department has a different type of budget process than we do, as you know, being a town meeting representative in FinCom. Is that they get a bottom dollar budget, so you really don't get into the line items in the school budget like you do at the selectmen's. About every salary or every nickel and dime, including paper supplies. So it's a line item budget versus a bottom line. So it's a different budget. But I think we're getting through the process the way it is, and we're still moving forward. We're getting positive things done.
all right, then the train station, that looks like it's moving along, right?
It is. And I've taken the lead at the request of the town manager on that. And what we're doing with it now, we have our water connection has been completed, electricity is done, and what we're working on now is the heating system. So we have water, we have electricity. The burner system, I'm told from a professional that he can get it working, but getting it working and having it be reliable are two different things. Yes. So we need to make that assessment. So we're still in the process of applying for grants. We've had the help from Senator Timilty, Representative Ted Phillips, and Galvin in getting us some money, and Mark Zemanian, chair of CPC, had volunteered up, an offering from the CPC for $200,000 that was passed at the recent town meeting and now available to secure the windows. The windows are in pretty tough shape, yeah, and they're not even at this point really weather tight. So what we want to do is button them up so that they're weather tight. And as we go along in the renovation process, we'll be putting new windows or having them redone so that they're suitable. So it's an ongoing process. The townspeople have supported it to be a community center, We will do everything in there. And I've got studies that we've put together of things that can be done in there. Pop-up little art exhibits, a meeting place for Boy Scouts, Cub Scouts, a church group. It's going to invite everybody under the roof to be a part of it. So we're on track. It's not going to be fast. Wish it would be, but I don't see anybody unless they hit that 1.5 billion that they throw us 5 or 10 million to get it going. So,
Well, Dave Valori come up with a good idea to have the Stoughton Little Theater.
well,
It's small. It ain't like the
Okay.
old theater. They can do it in 2 nights and have a lot of people, but they can do the same thing. Simple stretch out over 4 or 5 days, have smaller groups, but it gives them a home to work out of.
Well,
for-
it won't be
for
a
once.
home for them to work out of. It can't be a home for them to work out of. It's a community center, and they'll have every opportunity. Now, you and I both know Jan Jones, and anyone that's a townie in Stoughton remembers Jan Jones, and her family has deep, deep roots here in
yeah.
Stoughton. And her maiden name is Philos, and if
Yeah.
anybody remembers Tony Philos,
Twinkie Raincoat.
Twinkie Raincoat, and the leader of the Lions Club for all those years. Tony was a great, 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 great man. His family, honorable people, and they'll do the right thing. I met with Jan Jones before this even came back into our possession, when I was involved in a previous term on the board working with the MBTA to get it. I worked then with, oh my gosh, my brain slips me now. But worked with a gentleman and working with the T to get that back, and within a month of getting it back, my term on the board that I didn't run for re-election had ended, and the people that came behind me kind of messed it up, and so right now we have it back in our possession. It's moving forward. It's a great thing. Little Theater will be very, very involved with that as well.
That's good.
And we've got a lot of other groups that are similar. We've got dance groups that want to do things. There's council and aging events that can be run there. Holiday events. Somebody brought forward an idea of doing something like a Polar Express event at the holidays. A New Year celebration, things like that. So the list is long. And I've done some research, like I said, across the country, other states that have done things with their train stations. The UK had some beautiful ideas on it. And there's
UK, you
grants.
mean England?
England, yeah.
Okay.
They've had a lot of their stations, come up and what they did with it. So there's a lot out there, and there's grants. The Department of Interior has some grants. You can actually use rail grants. It sits on an active rail. So we may be able to work through, the Department of Transportation here in Massachusetts, as well as the MBTA, because I'll tell you, the MBTA owes the people of Stoughton quite a few favors. We gave them that building, and it was transferred into their custody, and in the lease it said that it will be kept in its current condition. And the T nudged. I had said we should have sued the T for a breach of contract, but nobody had the guts to do it when I was bringing it up, because we gave it to them in pristine condition, and they just let it go into the place, into turmoil, and it's just a pittance of what it was when we gave it to them.
All right, let me ask you this. That building is supposed to be a registered landmark?
It is.
Okay. So when I was against us taking it from the T, because to me, the T owned a registered building. We should have forced them to do all the repairs and upgrade it to today's standards.
Well,
And, you know what I mean?
I agree.
Instead of
Well,
us-
if
Instead
you-
of them demolishing it, we gave it in good shape, and then now we gotta bring it back.
Well, there was
Cost of millions.
a lack of courage to do that back then, and that's what I was saying right along, because at the time I was new to the board in roughly 1997, I believe 96, 97 is when we let the T take it, and I was a signer of that because the board voted to do it. I didn't really want to, because I've always been a history nut. I thought we should keep it, but it was a contract that was doable. They were going to keep up. They were going to because it was Alice Petruzzo and Orrin Hansen, a bunch of people in Stoughton got that building refurbished and got it registered on the historic landmark. And then the T basically destroyed it.
Destroyed it, yeah.
So I had said right along that before we started this negotiation, where the governor said at one point we were supposed to get it for $100,000, We ended up paying over $1 million for it. I mean, and we got a toilet back. So I still to this day say I think we just should have sued the MBTA because they broke their agreement.
I agree.
But sometimes leadership comes slight. So.
All right, I'm going to ask one more question, then I think unless something else pops into my head. I'm not too crazy about you're going to make the windows weather tight, but you got this old dilapidated. It's going to suck up all kinds of oil or gas, whatever it is, to try to heat that building. I should think, there must be grants out there, like if you want to put a high efficiency boiler in your house, you go to the state, Mass Save and all that, and you get everything really cheap. And I think maybe the town or whoever's in charge here should look into that.
Oh, we're not going to keep the old system.
I know, but I mean, okay, you're going to make it weather tight, but the boiler's going to run. But this winter, that boiler's going to try to keep that place heated.
But we can shut down zones too, though, because if you recall, that's all forced water. So we can shut down
I didn't know it
zones.
was forced hot water.
It is. So it's got the old-fashioned steam hot water radiators. So all we want to do is get it so it's weather tight, and we're going to need heat in the winter. Or we just do the same thing as we drain all the water down, but again, we want to make sure that the building is secured while we go forward. We're not going to be able to do much in it because it just needs so much work, but we've got it right now so that, we could go in it, we can do certain things. We're not going to be having plays this year.
Yeah,
it's not going to happen, or to 2024. But it's going in, getting the funding, working with our, State House delegation and Congressman Lynch's office, to get some things done. When we need to, we'll get Senator Warren and Markey as well, because it's in Massachusetts.
Markey's all done.
Since when? I didn't hear that one yet.
He's not going to run again.
Well, he's still got a few years, doesn't he?
I don't know. He's a senator.
Senator.
Yeah, they go a little longer.
Yeah. So, but again, hey, listen, while he's there, he's going to get a knock on his door from Stoughton.
Oh.
He's our senator. So, okay. But we're on our way to a good program. We're going to keep history alive in Stoughton. There's a lot of history there, and some of the people that went to work many days out of that station, or the Chief Vanston when he was standing out front like the Lord, of his empire when the building was all destroyed from the train hitting it. We're going to remember those people when we put it back together.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. All right, we'll move on to a disgruntled water department employee who sabotaged the water system. Where's that headed?
Nowhere good for him.
Good for him?
For the employee.
Why, because he's getting paid while he's home?
I don't believe that's the case at this time.
Oh, really?
And there is a process that, when somebody's accused of something, there's a process you go through. You don't just say, okay, it looks like you did it, you're fired. And they're still in that process. This has gone into a very, very deep investigation and interviews with authorities other than the town of Stoughton. This is something that it deals with an employee, so I can't say anything. Yeah. It would be very easily to become litigation, but some of the allegations that have been made are serious, and I leave that to the people that'll do the investigations and our town manager to do what's right for the people of the town.
Yeah, that's what do they call it? Saboteur. He sabotaged the water system.
I've heard. Yeah, I mean
federal.
It's again. There's a lot of stuff,
Yeah.
and again, as you know, we're policymakers. I don't get involved with the everyday happenings of town meeting, of town hall rather. That's why we have a town manager, and the town manager has authority under the town charter that we don't. So I stay clearly within my lanes, but it's no secret that we have a problem there. But I can assure people for the limited amount I do know that the process is in good hands.
Well, the other thing I was kind of upset about, this guy, he disarmed the alarm system, outside, inside. To me, if that was a really high-tech system, once the outside lights or the outside alarms were disconnected, that should automatically send some kind of a signal to the proper people in the department and to the police department. And then when he went into the station, he disarmed it. Again, another signal should have went to the proper authorities.
Yeah.
And that never happened because I think the system is inadequate. I mean, that's my opinion. And because if it did do the system did work the way I'm saying it should have, they would have the guy right away.
Well, again, it'd be inappropriate for me to talk about
Yeah,
it, Peter.
I'm
don't
just-
have.
I'm just giving you my
I know
opinion.
there's a lot of things that have been talked about. A lot of things have been circulated, but I have not read anything, to this point that would allow me to agree or disagree with anything. I don't know. All I know is that this is a major investigation with people that are, well above my pay grade.
Yeah.
And I trust them to do their job and to give the town manager the guidance to make the right decision for us.
Okay, speaking about the town manager, why don't you let everybody know all the goods or bads or how he's shaped out. I know one thing. I mean, he came from, he's been on both sides. He's been in the public sector, and he's been a political representative in the State House, and he's working for us in, other towns too, as municipal town manager. But he's aggressive, and a lot of things he wants to do, like for years I've been saying, when they keep talking about the downtown, they never mention the infrastructure. I keep saying, you gotta do the infrastructure first. Because if you don't, then you put up the buildings and a
Sure.
sewer main collapse, now you dig up the street, you're shutting everybody down, so it just doesn't make sense. So right away, he agreed. He said, yeah, we have to do that first, because that's his outside background from the public sector, the private sector. But that runs into the millions, and that's another big debt we're gonna be piling on to all the overrides. So,
Well, Peter, really, if it's done the right way, it shouldn't.
if you get great, if I've been saying this for years, so we should hold everything off, have plans ready for everything we want to do, so when the infrastructure money gets here, we're ready. Infrastructure money would take care of that downtown, for what we have to do, and sewer and water everywhere else too, do the whole town.
Yeah. Well, something like that is going to take a major commitment from our congressional delegation and our State House delegation. As you know, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts has turned a blind eye to Stoughton when it comes to dealing with the downtown. Every 5 or 10 years, we get some money for an intersection or some lights, or to repave it. Well, it's only because they're putting major state routes. There's no town around that has the amount of traffic. Maybe Randolph is close, but it's only on their 139 and 28.
28.
But again, if you look at the density and the amount of traffic that flows through Stoughton coming in from Brockton and from Sharon in the mornings, and even some of it through Cobb's Corner, we take a lot of traffic through Stoughton Center.
Yes, we do.
And if I had known you would have that question, I would have called the engineer and got the most recent data. But, and then all we do is, we're putting lights in places, and it creates another bottleneck, because what it does when the traffic light goes green, now instead of cars being spaced out evenly, it's a whole bunch that are right on each other's rear ends. So the amount of traffic now is that when it comes into Stoughton on Route 27 from Brockton, when it stops in Stoughton Center, it backs up almost to Seaver Street, to Walnut Street rather, and then when that stops, it backs up to Sumner Street. And some days, it backs up to Bob's Food Mart.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so much.
But the problem there is, the lights don't work in tandem. When the light at Washington and Porter Street, that's red. The light on Park Street coming into the square turns green. And this is still red, so the cars get out, and they're plugging up the intersection, so nobody can move. Now, if this light was green, and this one turned green at the same time, now you got everybody moving in tandem, so you wouldn't be getting that backup all the way up Park Street. So that's a problem with the timing of the lights. For some, as long as them lights have been there, they never got the timing of them lights coordinated.
I worked because I had some complaints from residents coming in from Pearl Street, and the engineer took care of that. And so they are. Whether they drop off the cycle, I don't know. But they can be timed.
Yeah, they can, but
It's,
it never gets
But
done.
it's just the volume of traffic that's coming through. All the timing in the world doesn't work when you have traffic that backs up almost to Farley's.
Yeah, well, if the lights worked in tandem, there wouldn't be that traffic being held up all the time. Because a lot of times when this one does turn green,
Yeah.
this one's turned red.
Yeah.
And very few cars that come out of Park Street. You know
Yeah,
what I
see,
mean?
I don't sit there and watch the
Well,
timing, but I can talk with
I'm not
Mark.
sitting there watching.
Yeah.
I'm in the car trying to
Oh,
get
me too.
across. You know what
I
mean?
don't
So
think
see
there's
that
anybody
stuff.
that can say
and
that
then
they
a lot
haven't
of
sat
times, the lane that's going on the right-hand side through the square, that's empty
Yeah,
because the light down the far end is green.
yeah,
But the light for going this way, down my way, is red.
yeah.
Now, yeah, that should be rearranged so that traffic that's going that way can just go right through. But
Boy, anybody that can come up with a foolproof plan, I want to see it. That'd be great.
No.
I don't think there's anybody in Stoughton that wouldn't love to see Stoughton Center flowing evenly.
it's the lights.
Yeah.
Nobody, for some reason, they can't get them lights timed,
Yeah.
no matter what they do. Okay.
No, I'll bring that up to Mark Tisdale and see what he's got to say. He's the one that's going to know it.
And what else was I going to say? Oh, the only way they're going to ever get rid of Stoughton Square, the traffic, you got to have an underpass. An underpass, all of 138 traffic will go in the underpass and come out on the other side of the square. But the only thing with that is you got to take lane taken on both ends to make it wide enough for the traffic that's coming from the north that doesn't want to go into under the underpass so they can stay on top and go through Stoughton Square. You know what I mean?
Well,
To take them side streets.
if
But
Mass Highway-
that would work.
yeah, if Mass Highway
But
were to-
I don't really like underpasses, but that's the only solution I can see.
if Mass Highway were to do the job that they've done for other communities in the state, there's plenty of land on 138 to take an additional lane in each direction and have 2 lanes. That'll double the flow that will fit on those roads. But again, Mass Highway just lets it go. And we've dealt with this problem before. Every time we go looking for funding for some road construction, we get paving, which is just laying another layer over what's there.
Yeah.
You know, and then one year, if you remember, they dug down deep, got rid of the cobblestones and new granite curbing, and that's when we found the old rail system, going to Glen Echo. But yeah, it just comes down. We can do great things if the state will help us fund it. And unfortunately, our town is solving the traffic problems of the area.
Yeah.
And it's about time that, we get up and yell and say, listen, we want more help. We've had a commitment from Senator Timilty to get funding, passed for the intersection of Canton Street and School Street,
Yeah.
major intersection, a lot of accidents there. Quiet zones for the trains, like other communities have done, Situate, Cohasset, down that way. What's wrong with Stoughton? So there's a lot there, but it takes a total team effort to do that. And we have a meeting upcoming with our congressional delegation and our state delegation just to talk about, what can we do for Stoughton? What funding's there? How can you help us? And let them know what we're looking for. That's their job, is to represent us in those entities, the State House and in Congress.
All right, I think I'll get to this other item, and if we got time, I'll come back to what I got here, these other stuff. All right, it's the land up in Page Street there that, what's his name? T.L. Edwards owns.
Yeah.
You were instrumental in getting I think it's a Canadian company that's doing a project.
I won't say instrumental, but I was asked early on in the process to consult them and to let them know what the town would allow, what would be good for the town. And the property owner did suggest that they meet with me, and if I thought what was good for the town of Stoughton, that he would consider selling them the land. I was honored to have that trust by him, that I've been there long enough, and I've worked, as you know, with a lot of different developments, Target, some of the Technology Drive,
Yeah.
and there's good businesses that can come to Stoughton. And the first thing that they wanted to do is they wanted their truck traffic and passenger vehicle traffic to enter and exit on Turnpike Street.
Yeah.
And when we talked the first time and they showed me the plans, I said, if you're planning on that, there's no reason to talk to me because it's not going to pass. So we looked at the avenues that were available, and when it all got through, we found there is an easement that goes out the back that was owned by many of the property owners, but they all have the right to access it. So that road worked, that this project is probably going to be the largest single piece of property that's been developed in the last 30 years.
Yeah.
We're looking at about 61 acres. It'll bring $2.3 to $2.7 million in new taxes to the town. It doesn't tax the schools, so we're not going to have to, worry
Yeah.
about putting more teachers on or
Teachers,
more
yes.
classroom space. It doesn't, pose any additional burden to the fire department because it's going to be warehousing. So we don't have extra traffic coming through. The truck traffic that's going to enter and exit this facility, this piece of property, 61 acres, is going to enter and exit through Page Street only. And the total amount of traffic, and this was the thing that that a lot of folks don't know and didn't know during this process, is that of the traffic going up there now, 94% of it comes from the Avon Industrial Park.
Oh, really?
All right, so exactly. So it's all the traffic that goes out the back through the Avon Industrial Park and from Avon downtown, Page Street, they run up. And that has been the issue that goes back to the early, mid-2000s when we were putting in the construction and demolition plant on Page Street. Town of Avon was upset that their town was used as the official truck route going through the Avon Industrial Park from Harrison Boulevard. They were quite upset with that. And then the late Senator Brian Joyce attended the meeting with representatives of the state, DEP, Mass Highway, so forth. And they made the comment that, if the town of Avon was going to serve as the truck route for this facility, then they should share in some of the revenue from this facility. And a couple of comments were made and so forth, and I stood up and I said, Mr. Secretary, I said, I couldn't agree more with the senator and my colleagues in the town of Avon. So that if a community is going to serve as a truck route for a majority of the traffic, they should definitely be involved with some of the profits from that location. I said, so when my colleagues in the town of Avon are ready to talk to me about giving us some kind of money from all the truck traffic that comes up and down Page Street, I'd be more than glad to entertain. So needless to say, Peter, that conversation ended because we would have made a lot of money then.
Yeah, I guess.
But this project is going to add 24 hours a day, 4% more traffic on that road, which isn't even going to be recognizable. When we went through the permitting process, there were people questioning Pleasant Street. They're not going to use Pleasant Street when they come right down Page Street. It's going to be the quickest route on and off the highway. So again, we're happy that this past Tuesday night, the select board voted the final documents to allow the road to be built in from Page Street. So right now, that property has all done the formal permitting process, and they're ready to start developing. I don't know when. There's still some land issues that they have to deal with the owner, but I've been committed, and it started back. We made some big steps in 2015 to release some property that was not doing anything, just sitting dormant, and we put it out to get it off the town doles and put it out where it could become tax-producing property. And we did that. We had another one. It took a long time, 2015 to 2023 to get it done. But that property is on the other side of 24 going towards the old Stoughton dump. And there's 11 acres out there on the right now that'll become tax-producing property for the residents of Stoughton. So, people always say, when are you going to lower my taxes? And we say, well, there's no way to lower taxes unless we cut services. But what we can do is we can work cooperatively with developers in the area to bring responsible development into Stoughton, work with our paid staff that are very talented at doing the work to see what we can put on these pieces of property so that we reduce the need for new taxes. Work smarter, not harder. $2.3 to $2.7 million in new revenue to the town of Stoughton as a result of this. I would challenge anyone to find any property bigger. The only property we've built as big as this would have been our new high school of a building. We had actually a defense contractor in Stoughton that expanded their facility, but on that was only a few acres. But we've been doing very good at bringing additional taxes into the town with updates, revamping, rezoning, things like that. We rezoned the downtown area to make it more attractive to responsible housing development as well, so that we get a little bit of everything with businesses. We've got the hole in the ground filled up with a foundation now, but
I was waiting for that to collapse.
yeah, well, you know, it's
Kept backfilling with no supports.
yeah, well, it's done now. It's done within code with what they did, and the steel is supposed to be delivered the 1st of I believe September, and they're hoping to get the steel up, you know, before the winter. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, that's
That
what I
has
thought
been-
was holding up steel. A lot of
Yeah.
people can't get the steel.
Yeah, well, I was told Amazon was buying up all the steel, and when I did a little research, found out it wasn't a correct statement. But you know, so no, we're making progress, and between Select Board Member Cavey working on the senior housing, bringing in, you know, a major development that doesn't tax our infrastructure, doesn't tax the schools or public safety, and brings in $2.3 to $2.7 million is definitely a win for the residents. We're moving in the right direction.
Well, I've been around long enough. No matter how much extra money we bring in, it's never enough because it disappears and the taxes still go up.
Well, you know, Peter, here's the plug for that. Let's get more people to get on town meeting, you know, and get them out there voting what they believe they want our town to look like.
But
and-
do you see what town meeting looked like the last 2 years?
I did. I
Like
do. I see it.
50% of the older people got out of it.
Yeah.
And all these people that come in now, they vote for everything. Spend, spend, spend. It's like there's a bottomless well. of
Well,
money
there you
coming
go.
up.
You just made your own argument. I mean, if you don't like the way things are going, our legislative branch in Stoughton is town meeting. And I've seen it for years. People sit down, they open up their envelopes the night of town meeting. They don't do any homework. They open it up and they start reading it that night. You know, and I'm not painting with a broad brush, but there are people like that. That's not how you do the job of a town meeting rep.
I know.
We have some people in town meeting that they come up and make statements that I can't believe they make. They don't do their homework and so forth, and they act like it's fact. But you know, that is our form of government. And you know, I encourage people, you know, if you want help running for town meeting, I'll walk you up to town hall, help you get the papers, and I'll be one of your first signatures if you're in precinct 5.
I thought you were going to say you were going to get the signature.
No, I'm gonna, you know, because when I go to signature, when I need signatures, I know where to go. I go to you.
I was going to say, boy.
Yeah. No, but hey, I'll tell you right now, if somebody in precinct 5 decided they wanted to run for precinct rep, I'll help them. I'll help them get signatures. I can only help within my precinct, but you know, it is our greatest form of government. Town meeting is a good form of government. I believe that we need to either make it work better for us, or we have to abolish it.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, you know, we get a lot of people that get in there for one or two particular reasons.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
they-
Then you
they-
don't see them for the rest of the
Exactly, and once their article passes, they leave.
Yeah.
You know, and that's
Right.
not good.
You're right.
I've always been a proponent for a council, you know, a town council, and you would have an 11-member town council, and 1 member from each precinct, and then 3 members at large, so it gives you an odd number, and you hire a town manager. You don't have planning boards, zoning boards, school committees. You know, people run on the issues that, you know, that they're concerned with. And that's a good, because then you don't have as much of this committee layer system and, you know, everybody bringing their political beliefs. If you're going to be political, run for the job that makes the decisions. Because unfortunately, in some of our processes, we have people that try to use these advisory committees that are strictly advisory, and they try to affect policy, which is the job of the select board.
Yeah.
So, you know, we don't need that. Everybody wants our town to be the best it can be. And I've been doing this a long time. I'm honored to have the trust, as you've heard me say many times, honored to have the trust that, that the residents put in me by bringing me back, you know, year after year. And, you know, many terms under my belt right now, but
Yeah.
like anything, that when we're in this job, I'm not going to talk about what I did in 1992. I'm going to talk about what I did my last 3 years. That's the way that people can judge the job you're doing.
Yeah, right.
And I believe right now we have a board that is, let's face it, you've seen some of our meetings, and they get pretty hot sometimes.
Yep.
Everybody's got a difference of opinion. But when it's all said and done, we can put that aside, and we're making decisions that I think, you know, working with our new town manager, he was the only town manager in the history of my tenure with being active, dating back to 1986. I can't believe I say that. I'm in my 20th year as a member of the select board, and I've never seen a town manager elected with a 5-0 vote. And Tom Coulter was elected with a 5-0 vote. And he's honored that vote by digging in and finding things that we didn't even know existed.
Yeah.
You know, it.
Well, we were going to come up with a list of good stuff he did. I don't think we went through too much of that.
Oh well, I'll tell you. I mean, it's
I mean,
a list.
The one thing he did do, I went up and I told him that the transfer station up there, they're supposed to help us give money back to the town and take our own trash and everything else. He said, oh, the solar farm, that's what it was.
Yeah.
On top of the old dump. I says, they're supposed to be paying us something. I said, I don't know. He says, I got that on my list. I already went up there, and I got a check out of him for $100,000.
Yeah.
So all these years they weren't giving us anything.
Well, you know,
So he
that's
was
been
quick on doing that on his own before I got there. And go ahead, elaborate. What else?
well. Some of that, you know, I got to say too, you know, is unfortunately it was the lack of action by previous town managers to catch that. I got to tell you that you know, I went out on a limb pretty quickly. When we were going through the interview process for Mr. Coulter, 3 people into it, I made a comment to a colleague. I said, well, I just found my town manager. And the person said, how can you say that when we have 6 more people to interview? I said, experience. It's that simple, experience. He knew more about our financial status than our own auditor was telling us in the interview process. I learned things from him and had to go validate it. To find out that he was correct, I was a little dumbfounded. But he had an action plan, and most other people were saying things like, when I was at this town, I did this. When I was over here, before I was here, we did this. He was the only town manager that said, I've looked at the Department of Revenue stats, and your uncollected taxes are way higher than they should be. When I start, I'm going to get right on that. And he kept saying that. When I get into my office, after you hire me, I'll get this done. And he's found $1 million deficit in the water department. He found $1 million deficit in the sewer department. He found an $800,000 deficit in the trash account by analyzing the accounts. Not by saying we have a good balance right now. We have money in the account. He said we're losing money every year, and it's never been brought to the board's attention. And that's where we were. To give Christine Howe, select board member, you know, who moved on to, Christine had mentioned it when I got back on in 2019.
Yeah, you said that too, right up front, the town manager.
And she said this, she said, if we keep doing this, now when the water rates go up, or the sewer rates go up from MWRA, if they go up 20%, the select board was taking votes to, you know, say, well, we can't burden the taxpayers, so we'll go up only 50%. Well, that just became another deficit. And we've got to pass it on to the rate users. And when you give breaks, and believe me, Peter, and you've heard me say this before, I pay all the same taxes you pay, and water rates and sewer rates. We all pay the same. If I could vote myself in the residents a decrease, that's what I want to do. But by not passing on the cost, you're not telling people how important it is. And some people waste a lot of water. You know, they're out mowing, watering their lawns, washing their cars. You're going to pay that bill, you know, and the more it climbs up. But we should have been doing better fiscal management.
That's right.
And this town manager, being from the private sector, he was a senior VP for a major national company. He's running it like a business. And I'm proud to vote for him. You've heard me say in many venues, I want a strong town manager. I want somebody that's going to come in and do the job the way the charter says. The selectmen don't run the town. The town manager runs the town every day. The select board sets policy and provides guidance on behalf of the residents. We're supposed to be the fiscal watchdogs, you know, for the residents with the auditor, and to make sure that the town accounts are running well. But you know, we can't do it all. That's why we need a good town manager. And this town manager, in my opinion, has done, you know, in his first 6 months, more than, you know, 10 years worth of town managers in the past. It's phenomenal.
Well, that's good. Good to hear. All right, trash pickup.
Mm-hmm.
That was quite a storm that brewed up, because we've been used to all the years from day one having curbside pickup. And then when they wanted to go to the trash bags, I went online. I got some people to come the second time. The hall was packed. And I think that made everybody take a second look and go over it again. So the trash is going to stay curbside pickup, but they're doing different things. Like if you want a mattress, a piano, or a desk, or a refrigerator picked up, you got to call, and which to me was the same way before. But they're charging a fee. I don't know if they charged fees before or not. But the first night I was against it right away when what was the name of that company with the bags?
Oh, I don't recall.
Well, let's say Net Zero.
Yeah, that might be exactly what it was.
And we got to pay $2 and change for a bag, for a 30-gallon bag. And I was at Ocean State the other day for, I don't know, a few bucks. I was getting 6 bags, heavy bags for trash. So, I mean, it wasn't even 50 cents a bag.
Well, yeah.
But wait a minute.
Yeah.
So to me, they were making all the money. For $2 a bag and change times, I don't know, 6,003 single-family homes plus the duplexes and all that. I mean, $2 a bag, that's a lot of money at the end of the year.
But the $2
And all
a
they got to
bag.
do is just give you the bag with the stamp on it.
Yeah.
So that right away, that
Well, the
that-
$2 a
that killed
bag
me.
would have been including the disposal cost, not
What?
just the price of a bag.
Oh, so we had to pay $2 a bag.
Right, $2 a bag,
Yeah,
but that included your disposal. So what would have happened, what we ended up doing is, unfortunately, it resulted in a 52% increase in the trash rate to make up for the deficit.
No,
But what?
the
But
deficit-
let me finish it. What it would have done is right now, somebody like you, and you've got some people living in the house. I don't think you put out one bag.
I never
You
put
know,
up bag,
right.
one bag when I was by myself.
Right. So, all right. So people that had one bag would have cost them $225 a week. People that are putting out a bunch of trash would have been more.
Yeah.
Okay. But there was one member of the select board that was looking, pushing for, a discount for seniors. Most seniors will put out a bag every 2 weeks. So they would have saved a lot of money. Now they did get a discount, but the discount still wouldn't have been cheap for the seniors if they would just paid their one bag a week or every other week. So but this is what, and there was a lot of people in that hall, but there was probably 50% of the people that were quiet. That group that was there was definitely an outstanding numbers, not even a smidgen of a representative of the community as a whole. Those were people that already had their mind made up. They didn't want it. They weren't there to listen to fact. They were there to oppose it.
Well, I
That's
listened to
a
facts.
big difference.
I was opposed to them.
All right, no, but see, that's a thing. When people come out and they're opposed to something, they'll come out to let their voice be known. But then again, there was just the same opportunity for a lot of people who were in favor, and people usually don't come out to tell you they're in favor. But that overwhelmingly that night was just the people that just had their mind made up walking in the door. They were opposed to it before they even listened to the facts. And I was criticized by a colleague of mine for trying to ask for more information. And when you're afraid of facts, you're not doing your job. Let the facts speak for themselves. Let people have all the information so they can make an informed decision as what they think is good. So to me, that process was not a fair process. The people that were there had their voice known, but they weren't listening to all the facts. Their mind had been made up.
Well,
But they're entitled to their opinion, as I've said.
Yeah, but I don't know what they all basically said the same thing. They wanted to leave everything the way it was.
Right.
And I agree. I mean, we as a town have the best trash pickup of anybody around. Everybody in the surrounding towns would love to have
Well,
our
we
trash
pay
pickup.
for it dearly, though. We do pay for it.
It's
the
cheaper.
best.
It's cheaper here than it is like in Easton.
And
When you get the containers, you're paying more.
Only-
You're about $1,000 a year.
Only because we were smart enough to sign up with the CMAS partnership 15 years ago, or more now, about 30 years ago.
Well-
and that locks us in at a rate that other people can't
Yeah.
touch.
I
And as
know,
you're
but-
well aware, we're a charter community. We were one of the first five
yeah.
communities. And when we renegotiated with them about 10 years ago, they needed the plan to be different, so our money went in on the heavy on the front. Usually when you get into these contracts, you start low and work your way up. It gets higher.
Yeah.
But we had flipped it. We gave them a little more up front,
Yeah.
and it
Back
went
down.
lower. But then what we said for doing that, we want to make sure that if you sign anybody after us and they get a lower rate than us, we automatically get that rate plus 1%. So we would have made out if they had done that. But because we've locked in at that partnership as long as we have, and we are a charter community, so we're always given the opportunity to be first to jump back in. And then if we say no, somebody else gets the opportunity to come in. We'll never, and that's why it's always upset me when people come to the town hall and the trash guys say they're coming after our jobs, they're going to privatize it, and they don't look at the facts, Peter. We could not privatize it and save money. It would cost us money to privatize.
That's right.
So when people come in and say that, they're not doing the citizens as a whole any service, because it may not be lies, but is 100% misinformation.
Yeah,
because
I agree with that. I agree with that.
And that's what happens with these issues. So it.
But also, all right, so one of the nights I was there, I says, they had that $875,000 plus deficit. If they raise it up $20 a quarter, they'll give you $120 a year out of each household. That would have eliminated that deficit.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, now going for the next year after that, we don't need that extra $20. We can cut that back to keep up with the cost of labor going up. Because if we're going to eliminate that $800,000 in 1 year, and going ahead, we have to cut that money back.
Well, you know, but nobody still remembers the facts that were brought up as what really is adding to our problem is the illegal multifamily homes that are in Stoughton, and people that move other people in, and add to that, as well as because we take anything.
Hey, Joe, we got 55 seconds.
55
I want to say
seconds.
one thing.
Alrighty.
Why do we need a trash cop riding around town?
Why? To make sure that Stoughton residents are only ones bringing trash in, Peter. There's out-of-town trash coming in. There's multifamily units. There's 4-family homes that are sneaking things into other people's front lawns. And we need to control what you and I are paying for. People are dumping for free in Stoughton. They're making our town look like crap. We got to step in.
I ain't going to go the rest of my views because I ain't going to have enough time.
Hey, listen, all we are is Stoughton residents trying to make a difference. Everybody on the select board.
Joe,
and we're going to protect everybody.
I want to thank you for coming on board. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
You're
It's
a
always
great guy.
it's always fun, Peter.
Take
It's
care.
always fun.
Take
Thank
care.
you.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Leave the gun. Take the cannoli.